Hello and welcome to the top 8 round of the Aichi Championships here in OP11. My name is Jake. You can also call me Atrocious. We'll be commentating, doing some unique English commentary of this match as well as the rest of the tournament. If you missed the top 16 video on the channel, make sure to go check that out. It was in the iCard up top, but I have a whole playlist of this whole tournament if you want to check that out. If you're seeing this after I finish uploading the entire way, makes it easy for you to see all the matches in this event. Now, quickly looking at the top 8 distribution, we saw that Belo was the #1 most populated deck in the top 16, 4 of them making it in, and 3 of them advanced into the top 8. So having a really good showing overall in taking out a lot of these more meta picks, as Belo is a counter that has developed within the meta. It's been able to knock down different counts of green purple Luffy, and also blue purple Luffy. All 3 of those decks going down to 1 each in this top 8. There are 2 other yellow decks alongside Betty in this top 8 though that I think are worth noting. One of them you may know as the blue-yellow Nami that was so fun to watch in the top 16 round, and also the Nell, a combination that I think surprised a lot of people, as well as Belo doing so good. But it's going to be curious to see how this tournament advances and how it continues to go down, especially with Belo being so dominant, if it can really make its way into the finals. Before we get going on this though, I just want to let you know that this is not the official live stream. This is me just doing my own practice as commentary to be able to join them on the big stage maybe someday. If you want to go watch the actual tournament, you can go click the link in the description below. I got the link there, and again, the playlist also has that as well. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you don't miss any of the tournament rounds that we've got in this one. But we're already going straight into the match. It's going to be green purple Luffy. So green purple Luffy, going to be a good video, I think, for a lot of people, because you really want to know how this deck functions, right? A brand new deck that's come out in the West. A lot of people comparing it to red purple Law when that was dominant in the meta. Plays very similarly in its manipulation of Dawn and reutilizing Dawn. Going to be really interesting to see what it matches up against, and it looks like it's going to match up against Belo. So one of the decks that is built to counter this choice in green purple Luffy, it's going to be on Belo to be aggressive enough to force the tempo and be able to really claim the win before the green purple Luffy gets going, right? Belo being able to trash a card in any revolutionary army or trigger card, gaining 3,000 power on that activated main phase, while the green purple Luffy has the ability on activate main to Dawn -2, restand to rested Dawn, and make his leader a 6k until the next turn. It looks like the green purple Luffy is opting to mulligan, and the Belo opting to keep the hand. Going to be interesting to see what their hand entails, if it's something that looks pretty good for the matchup, I would assume. And so looking at the green purple Luffy's hand, not a lot of early game play outside of that going merry. I'm going to call it going merry, not merry go, at least for now, until Bandai tells me to. But anyways, that'll be some nice early draw. But until your 6th Dawn turn or something like that, you don't have anything else to play. So looking pretty tough in the hand. You've got that 6-cost secret rare Luffy, a Luffy Taro, right? Something that has been on and off in these green purple Luffy lists. But you have other strong cards like Gum Gum Giant and also Electrical Luna. And moving into the Belo's hand, Belo, I do like this keep on this one. You've got some early plays that you can put down, like the Bartholomew Kuma, as well as playing down the Karasu as aggressively as possible. The Lindbergh might be nice to also play down on the field, especially if there's any Robins within the deck, right? Robins in the green purple Luffy deck will get KO'd by that when attacking effect, effect on the Lindbergh, so it might be nice to be able to play around and utilize within this matchup. And so we're starting it off. The green purple Luffy going first, still has that one Dawn play like I mentioned of the Going Merry. Gonna put that down and draw a card. Is gonna be a Frankie. So Frankie, actually a really nice pull off of that top deck from the Going Merry, is gonna be a good play to put down and try to keep up the tempo that Belo is going to produce after playing down that Kuma for a turn. So drawing into now a Zoro Juro, the green purple Luffy is in a much better spot than they were at the beginning of this game. Is kind of having some nice top decks, and as that 5,000 power swing goes through, is going to play that Frankie down and pass the turn. The Frankie is going to be really nice to be able to utilize for leader effect later, right, with that when attacking. And also, as soon as this Bartholomew Kuma turns sideways, right, and attacks after the leader effect, that Frankie is going to be going in and swinging at that for a knockout. So is going to start off the turn with that 4 to play Ivankov, and we'll see if the Belo opts to use the leader effect at this point. And it looks like they might be playing that, potentially getting rid of the 5-cost Ivankov. I don't know if I really love pitching the 5-cost Ivankov. It's a really great card, especially next turn, to be able to push tempo. But before they do anything else, is going to swing 5,000 at lead, is going to take that hit and find another Zoro Juro. So you were cool with one Zoro Juro. Another one is like, oh, okay, we're starting to get a little bit scary right here because, well, Zoro Juro is a brick in the hand. You really don't have counter at all right now. Every swing that is coming in goes through. So after pitching that Ivankov, is going to use that activate main on that 4-drop to play Lindbergh down. Lindbergh is going to be nice, right? Cheating that out. And now that the Kuma is 5,000 power, this 5,000 power swing is going to connect, right? No counter in the hand, putting the green purple Luffy already at 2 life and another non-counter card. There's no counter in this hand. It's going to be really interesting to see as this game continues and evolves, because you know multiple swings are coming in this next turn, and especially with potentially a Karasu coming down on the field. Karasu is going to make a lot of problems if you try to use leader effect. So what do you do at this point? You've got 5 Dawn right now. You don't really have the ability with Frankie to be able to regain Dawn until you use leader effect, right? As soon as you use leader effect, you'll be able to be behind on Dawn so Frankie can catch you back up, but is going to try to look for some sort of counter in the Zoro Juro. Looking at that top 5, finds a couple 2Ks, which are really nice in the Sanji and Uso. Hachi doesn't really want to grab the chopper right now. As soon as you see a Lindbergh on the field, right, with that when attacking of popping a 3,000 power less character, your toting choppers kind of really become invaluable unless you can play multiple in a turn. So I think right now is trying to decide whether or not he wants to use leader effect. You do have to remember that with leader effect, as soon as you do use it, you will go backwards in Dawn, right? You are now at 3 Dawn currently, as your turn started with 5, but you do become a 6K. And one thing that is pretty nice, I think, at this point is with this 6,000 power swing going at lead is just going to be a 2K out with either the Koala or Kuma, or maybe taking the life. Says, you know what? Maybe I can rush down, try to get a trigger body, right? There's plenty of trigger bodies in this Belo deck, including the Bartholomew Kuma, right? The Lindbergh that we see a lot, Karasu potentially. And it looks like it is going to be one of those trigger body cards in the Bartholomew Kuma, right? Since the total life of both players was 4 overall, you're allowed to play Kuma off of that trigger, and with the 1 done, is going to go ahead and play another Merry Go. It's just another non-counter card in here, so only 2K in the hand. It's going to be a question of, do you leave up Gum Gum Giant, right? Gum Gum Giant, and utilize that could be incredibly good at this point, just simply because you don't have any counter in hand. You don't want to lose in the coming turns, especially after that body comes in. But this Frankie is going to allow you to get a Dawn back at least right here off of this when attacking. So swings in at the Kuma is going to be 4,000 power at A2 and is going to go ahead and take that knockout right here. Leaves 2 Dawn up and passes off the turn. Says, you know what, don't need to do anymore. I'm going to leave this 1 Dawn up on potentially the Giant if I need it. And now we go into the Belo Betty's turn. Finds that Revolutionary Army HQ that we've talked about in the last tournament, right in OP11. A lot of these Belo Betty's starting to play this. Just really nice to be able to cycle through the deck and find the key pieces that you need, which has been very good for Belo Betty's in their consistency. And so what do you do at this point? I don't know if the Belo Betty player has a good enough read to be able to know that the green purple Luffy just has no counter in hand. I also like letting the Kuma go, right? A lot of people may be curious as to why he didn't keep that Kuma on the field as an extra swing, but as green purple Luffy becomes a 6,000 power leader, right? Kuma being a base 2,000 off of that leader effect only gets up to 5,000. So I think maybe just really trying to hold the counter in hand to potentially like use for stuff like leader effect to be able to survive in the turns. And speaking of leader effect, pitching the Revolutionary Army HQ to play down a body off of that Ivankov activate main, it's going to be Karasu. So Karasu is going to go ahead and put the green purple Luffy back down to 5,000 power, and you still have so much Dawn to work with. You didn't have to really give up any counter in hand either, as your Ivankov is now sitting at 8,000 power, your Lindbergh is sitting at 8,000 power, and your Kuma is sitting at 8,000 power. Is going to be a very, very strong start. And looky there, the Koala comes down. Koala is going to go ahead and minus 3,000 power the Zoro Juro, making it a 3,000. Might be using on that Lindbergh to be able to swing 8, pop that Zoro Juro, right, neutralize the threat, and take a life. It's going to be a Frankie, which is a nice 1K, but you don't really have a lot of Ks in your hand right now. Just the 2K, 1K combo in the Sanji and Frankie is going to be a tough spot, especially after fulfilling this 8,000 power swing. The only way that you're going to be able to get out of this at this point is if you use a Gum Gum Giant, I think. And so is going to use that Gum Gum Giant, is going to go back down to 2 Dawn, pitches the Luffy Taro, right, non-counter card. You're probably not getting that Dawn high enough. Does find a Tony Chopper and a zero cost event. The zero cost event is very nice, right? Is going to be able to get you up to 9,000 power after your leader effect. So is going to be very, very good, especially if you can get rid of this Karasu in any sort of fashion, which I actually don't think that they can. But first we have to get around this final character swinging 8,000 power, going to be the zero cost event, as well as a 1K off of the Frankie, right? Because remember, you went back down to 5,000 power off the Karasu. So the zero cost Gum Gum Jet Gatling only gets you up to 8,000 power. Now with the leader swing of 9,000 power is going to take that final life of Luffy Taro. Just no counter at all. Where is all the counter for this Luffy? And the draw for turn is going to be a Gum Gum Giant, which is very cool, but you're sitting at 4 Dawn right now, 5 after ramping on the Frankie. But what do you do at this point? You have the Electrical Luna in hand. Electrical Luna could be pretty nice to be able to freeze these 3 characters that are on the field, right? You would really only have to worry about 3 different swings in the Karasu, the Koala, and the Belo Betty. But the problem with that situation is you have to rest 3 Dawn, right, for the Electrical Luna. You can restand 2 of them, but you only have 3 Dawn left, so you can't really play a body like Zoro Juro to potentially compete or really have enough Gum Gum Giant power as well. This is why Belo Betty is such a good option, I feel like, in this OP11 format, with blue purple Luffy and green purple Luffy running amok, and even regular purple Luffy as well. Just the aggression forces so much, and especially if the opposing Luffy player just has a mediocre start, right? A slower start like they did in this game, it causes a lot of problems that Belo can maximize on. And Belo is like a $15 deck if you saw in my what One Piece decks actually cost video that we put out a couple weeks ago now, which I think this list is still pretty similar to what that video actually portrayed. Not having enough to be able to clear bodies overall right now, it's definitely a difficult spot. We do know that the demonic or a 9-sword style Asura Demon 9 Flash, I believe it's called, looking at the translation, hopefully I said that right, does have the ability to rest one of the Karasus, but you would lose out on the Frankie when attacking if you decided to go in that route. Being able to rest one of their 5 or less cost characters, the Frankie also needs to be rested in order to get that effect off. So ends up swinging 5 with the Frankie, is just going to be a nice 1k out of it. I do like that, right? You don't want to lose any bodies on the field. You kind of want to force them to play Electrical Luna at this point if they're going to be in a situation where they want to get rid of more than one body in this turn. And so with 3 Dawn left right now, is going to go ahead and play that Electrical Luna and freeze all 7 costs or less for the rest of the next refresh phase. So the Lindbergh, the Kuma, and the Ivankov all going to be frozen and not restood as active. Going ahead and using leader effect is going to be a 6k leader, but going in and now swinging just 6, and it looks like 6 at life right now. Could just go ahead and 2k out of this if you're the Belo, right? You would still have 2 life, and Luffy doesn't have anything on the field, and going to 5 Dawn next turn is going to be really tough for the deck, right? Can't play the 6-drop Luffy, so the Belo just absolutely running amok, because you know the one card that you grab off of the top deck is going to be utilized for the leader effect. So there we go. We see the leader effect probably boosting up the Karasu, Koala, and also the Ivankov. The third character doesn't necessarily matter. You really just want to get the 2 active ones. And so swings now 9,000 power at lead. 9,000 power is super impactful, especially with the Karasu, because not only does it put the Luffy back to 5, it's going to cost more than just this Gum Giant to get out of the swing. So pitching the Luffy Taro, going down to 1 Dawn, drawing 2 cards, finds a non-counter card and a 1k. So you do have to have a 1k to get out of this. It is going to be the Nami, but with this Koala now swinging 6,000 power, I believe, I'm sorry, 7,000 power, a 2k, 1k is going to get out of that, and the rest of the Dawn swinging on the green purple Luffy is going to take the win. Just an absolutely dominant performance in this. One of the probably more dominant ones that we've seen in these tournaments, at least for the last couple sets that I can remember. And again, definitely good to showcase why a lot of people believe Belo in this meta, and why a lot of people were thinking, at least in the East, that Belo could do well within this tournament as the 1v1 championship season has been going. Let's go ahead, let's look at some sample deck lists though. So this isn't the exact green purple Luffy list. This is one that came from the recent OP11 3v3 that I think overall was pretty similar, right? We saw the different events in this list in the Gum Jet Gatling when you're at CU5 Pirates, Gum Giant in the demonic sword style, as well as Luffy Taro, and those are a lot of, at least these 3, kind of the flex spots, I would say, within this list that you usually see people go on and off about. I think another flex spot is the Franosuke, right? But has been a really good addition, right? Especially as a searchable 2K that can potentially have rush to combat a lot of these smaller bodies. Green Purple Luffy, without a doubt, is still a very strong deck within this format, even though it didn't have its best showing in this round, right? Just pulling so many non-counter cards, and that's kind of the problem. I mean, look at these non-counter cards that are in the deck. Sanji Pudding, we didn't even see one in the game. Didn't even have an opportunity to build up and play that. You've got one of the best secret rares printed for this deck, especially in the Monkey D. Luffy as a brick. Zoro Juro's a brick. We saw multiples of those, multiple Luffy Taros, which is a brick. And when you don't have any Dawn, When you're at sea, you fight pirates, a brick. Going merry, a brick. Gum Gum Giant, a brick. All of those also being 4, as well as other tech cards like Demonic or a 9-sword style Asura. That sometimes happens with this deck. Sometimes you're a little bit unlucky. I know that they mulliganed into that hand, so it's not one that they intentionally wanted to keep. But that's kind of what happens sometimes with card games. Looking at Belo though, this isn't the exact list, but this was in a first place 3v3 tournament, and I think it's probably mostly the same, I would think. Belo a lot of times, especially in this format right now, doesn't have too many differences between the builds. Belo being able to, without investing any Dawn, being able to give 3 different characters plus 3,000 power is just so good to not only be able to get extra effects off like we saw in that game, like Lindbergh or the Ivankov, right? Being able to cheat out a character, Karasu, one of the more dangerous cards of this deck. And if you know Belo you're always wondering how many Karasus your opponent's going to see in the game. It's also really nice to be able to just activate small bodies on your side of the field in stuff like Kuma, normally a 2,000 power character, which would almost never swing at leader. Belo right? Another one in that category where the base power is just too small more often than not. And then another option in Koala, right? Koala being a 3,000 power character can go up to 6 to help combat stuff like green-purple Luffy and blue-purple Luffy when they usually sit at 6,000 power. You've got some cheeky power minusing options in this deck, which I think are really, really nice. The Koalas, as we mentioned, are a mainstay, just a searchable 2K, but Raisemax, I feel like, is the coolest one of them all, right? Raisemax being very reminiscent of the Gordon, right, in Red Purple Law, and the first reprint of these 1-drop activate main power minus characters. The Raisemax, similar to the Kuma and Belo still has the ability to swing, and especially if you play this guy down early, right, maybe on like turn 1, you can go ahead, boost him up with the leader effect to 5,000 power, go ahead and swing with him, and then use that activate main to power minus something else potentially for the turn, round out playing down Akuma, right, to KO a 2,000 power or less character, or maybe set up a Lindbergh. This deck is a glass cannon. It's hyper aggressive, but one that's extremely dangerous, especially if you're in the West right now. Belo definitely something that you want to practice against, you want to watch out for no matter what deck you're playing, because it's a super cheap counter. I think locally Belo is probably one of the more populous decks in any given local tournament. And that's going to be all for this one. Thank you so much for watching this round. Make sure to go check out the last round if you haven't seen that already. That'll be at the end cards. It'll be like right here on the video while it's in the thank you screen right after I'm done talking. If you're watching this as soon as it released, I appreciate your support on that notification squad. And I'm going to try to get the final 2 rounds of this tournament, top 4 and the finals, up on Sunday. So if it's past Sunday, feel free to go in that playlist like I mentioned and check out the other rounds of this tournament. It's been a cool one, especially as the last hurrah of OP11, OP12 coming out later this upcoming week on May 31st out in Japan is definitely going to shape things up. I'm really excited about the Silvers Rayleigh and Zoro deck. And I know a lot of people are also excited about Koala, Kuzan, Ride, and Rosinante. Thank you again so much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. And yeah, keep playing.